A month ago, I made a decision not to read more, not to meditate more, but to live differently, to take everything I'd read about Stoicism and actually embody it. No shortcuts, no pretending. I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't just study the Stoics, but lived like one. And it wasn't easy. Stoicism sounds simple when you're reading it in a quiet room, but life has a way of testing your philosophy at the worst possible moments. Still, after 30 days of practicing restraint, stillness, honesty, discipline, and reflection, I walked away with something more valuable than comfort. I walked away with clarity. And I want to share that with you, not as someone who's mastered it, but as someone who's walking the same road, stumbling sometimes, but choosing to keep moving forward. Here's what I learned from living like a Stoic for a month. The first thing I learned is that most of what we react to isn't real. It's not what happened that upsets us. It's what we think about what happened. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them." At first, I didn't believe it. But then something small happened. Someone cut me off in traffic. Normally, I'd feel it. That flash of anger. The internal script would start running. What an idiot! Who does this guy think he is? But this time I stopped. I remembered. He didn't do anything to me. He drove a car. That's it. The rest, the story I was telling myself, that was optional. I started noticing how often I carried little insults in my head, replaying conversations, reacting to imaginary scenarios. And when I let those go, I wasn't weaker. I was free. The second thing I learned is that discipline is love in action. The Stoics didn't romanticize motivation. They didn't wait to feel like doing the right thing. They just did it. Marcus Aurelius said, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work,' as a human being." So I made a rule. I would wake up when I said I would. Train when I said I would. Stick to the schedule, not the mood. And you know what happened? I started trusting myself again. My confidence wasn't built on hype or hope. It was built on consistency. Because when you do what you said you'd do, even when it's uncomfortable, you become someone you can rely on, and that feeling is rare. Then came the harder lesson, learning to want less. I didn't realize how many of my habits were just disguised cravings, constant scrolling, pointless purchases, chasing hits of pleasure to avoid stillness. But Seneca warned us about this. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." So I stripped things down, fewer distractions, less noise, more silence. At first it was uncomfortable, like my brain was looking for something to grab onto. But slowly the silence became something else. Space. Space to think, to read, to observe, to be. And I realized so much of life is lost chasing what we don't need, while ignoring what we already have. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a discipline, and it changes everything. But perhaps the most surprising lesson came through my relationships. Because living like a Stoic doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being intentional, honest, strong enough to be kind, brave enough to say no, humble enough to listen. Seneca said, "Associate with people who will make you better. Welcome those whom you can improve." I started choosing my words more carefully. Not to be perfect, but to stop wasting energy on sarcasm, gossip, or empty conversation. I reached out to people I admired. I distanced myself from drama. And I started seeing people more clearly, not as enemies or allies, but as fellow travelers, struggling, trying, just like me. I learned to forgive quicker, to pause before I spoke, to let some things go, not because I was weak, but because it wasn't worth my peace. And then there was stillness, not just sitting in silence, but walking through chaos with calm. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So I practiced. Every morning I reminded myself, you control your thoughts, you control your attitude, you control your actions. Nothing else is guaranteed. And when I remembered that, even the worst days felt manageable, not easy, but meaningful. Because living like a Stoic doesn't remove the chaos. It just removes your need to control it. It gives you something better, poise. So what did I learn from a month of Stoicism? I learned that peace doesn't come from escaping pressure. It comes from knowing how to breathe under it. I learned that emotions are visitors, not masters. That discomfort is not the enemy, it's the path. That every day we get a choice, react or respond, chase or commit, drift or decide. And I learned that wisdom isn't a destination, it's a practice, a repetition, a quiet revolution that begins within. The Stoics never promised perfection, they promised progress. And that's all I was aiming for. To be just a little more aware, a little more grounded, a little more intentional than the day before. So if you're watching this and you've been thinking about trying Stoicism, don't wait until life gets easier. Try it now, in the middle of the noise, in the middle of the stress. That's where it matters most, because that's where you are shaped. And if even one of these lessons speaks to you, hold on to it. Write it down. Live it today, not tomorrow, not someday. Today. As Marcus wrote, you could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow. Don't choose tomorrow, choose this moment.